As you can see from the title, this video is all about the Seamaster Bond style watches in 41mm size. I do have a similar video about the sword hand models, and I'll link to that in the description. So here's the first and most famous model out of this series, the 2531.80. You'll see all the other watches that I'm going to show here do have some resemblance to this one. And here is one of the most similar of all of them. This is just simply the Quartz version of the 2531. It's called the 2541.80. That's the reference number. Extremely similar, as you can see, just slightly thinner. And here is one of the first of the several special editions which will be shown here. This is a 2537.80. This had a 007 motif, as you can see, both on the dial background and some additional text on the dial. Here's the case back, where again you have the 007. It is a limited edition, but a very high, I believe 10,007 pieces. And this is an interesting one. This is a automatic, but which is not chronometer certified. And the reference number is 2531.86. They're very rare and were produced for only a short period of time. This is sort of the enhanced version of the 2531, the 2220.80. This watch has applied indices. This was also has the red Seamaster text. This is the same watch on a leather strap. And this was the first Bond Seamaster to feature the coaxial movement, and that's explained on the dial. Here's the Quartz version that came out at the same time, 2221.80. Again, looks very similar, except it's slightly thinner than its automatic cousin. It does share the red Seamaster text and the applied indices. And 2221 was also offered on a leather strap, and there's the reference number for that watch. This is something that was new to me. I've seen very few of these on anything other than the Bond style bracelet. And here's yet another Bond special edition, 2226.80. This has the 007 logo as the counterweight on the second hand. Interesting gun barrel dial design, 007 marking on the case back. Again, a limited edition, but with a very high production number of 10,007 pieces. Here is a GMT version of the 2531, the 2535.80. I think this is one of the more interesting GMT designs I've seen. This watch is slightly thicker than the 2531 due to the more complex movement. And this is a very rare reference number 2539, which is the same as the GMT, but with this special case back. I believe only a couple hundred of these were made. And here is the first black dial version. This came out at the same time as the 2220.80, but has a much longer reference number, which I won't repeat here, but it's essentially the same watch, but just with a black dial and black bezel. And again, we have a super rare variety of this watch made for a branch of, I believe, Australia's armed forces. Very limited production there. This is the Quartz version of the black dial coaxial Bond watch. Again, this is Quartz, so therefore it does not have the automatic or coaxial wording, but otherwise is very similar. And this is a black dial special edition commemorating James Bond. Again, you have the 007 logo as a counterweight on the second hand, and similar 007 design on the back. This is yet again a limited edition technically, but not very limited, with over 10,000 pieces having been made. And this is a watch that came out right at the same time as the 2531, or very shortly thereafter, 2532.80. This is actually identical to the 2531, but does not have a blue bezel, rather a polished aluminum bezel. And this is the Quartz version of that watch, 2542.80. This again is identical to the 2541.80, which has the blue bezel, but even though the dials look different, they are the same. And here's a white dial version of the 2531, the 2532.20. During these years, the .20 typically signified a white dial. That was part of the code of the reference number back then. Here's the Quartz version of that watch, 2542.20. Again, identical except for the movement, the wording on the dial, and being slightly thinner. So here's the first model that has some gold in it. This is the 2332.80, and this was also offered in a all steel bracelet rather than the two-tone bracelet. Here is the Quartz version, 2342.80. The steel bracelet is denoted as 2442.80. This was something I was not aware of until I researched the watches for this video. Here is the white dial version, 2332.20. I did not know these were offered with regular steel bracelets under a different reference number. I actually, whenever I came across one with the steel bracelet, I thought that the bracelet had been swapped at some point, but no, these watches were in fact offered with a choice of two-tone or plain steel bracelet. And here's an interesting one. This is neither a sword hand nor skeleton hand model, but I included it here anyway. This was a watch produced for a Japanese market, and it does have applied indices but no waves on the dial, so it's somewhat interesting. Automatic is 2251.50 and the Quartz is 2261.50. So these are black dial, black date wheel. This is the blue dial version. You can tell from the white date wheel, but the blue is very difficult to see. It's almost close to a dark gray. This one was also offered in Quartz, as you can see here. Automatic reference number is 2251.80. Quartz is 2261.80. Nice looking watches. I've seen them in person. The applied indices do make the watch stand out somewhat from the more typical Bond watches. And here is a very different Bond watch. This is a special edition made for the Vancouver Winter Olympics in 2010. Now this is more of what I would call a true limited edition, with only 2,010 pieces having been made. That's a pretty low number for a brand like Omega, and consequently you don't see a lot of them. And here's another very rare watch. This is 2934.80 with a very special skeleton movement. I believe they call it Caliber 2400. The watch, bracelet, and case are all white gold. Here's a very similar watch, but with a, I believe, white gold bezel insert rather than blue. Again, these are extremely rare. I have no idea what the production number was for these, but I imagine it was extremely low. This is the same watch, but on a, I believe, leather, or it might be rubber strap from factory. And here is a very similar watch, except in yellow gold. And again, you have a very, very intricate skeletonized movement, oversized Omega logo at 12 o'clock. And here is the same thing again with the factory leather strap, I believe it is, although it might be rubber. It's difficult for me to tell from the photo. I have, like I said, seen maybe one of these for sale in many years. Here is a all gold model again, but this time with the sort of more standard dial and bezel. Even though this is not as elaborate as the skeletonized version, I've seen very few of these as well. And this is the same reference number, but on strap. I believe these were offered with the strap from the factory, but not sold under a different reference number. And here is a all gold model, but with a white dial, 2131.20. I would like to have a better photo of one of these, but unfortunately, as it is a rare watch, it's very difficult to find any photo of it. I hope this was helpful to you. As I said, I have made a prior video showing the sword hand models in 41mm, and if you're interested, please check that out as well. And thanks for watching.